I'll let you, do you want to say any words or anything?
Yeah, that's cute. I was thinking that you definitely don't need me here, but I'm going to be moderating the chat for us today. And we're super excited with EdCamp OCLA to have the amazing Kim Voge with EduProtocols. And I know all of you have seen her Smart Starts and have relied on that for starting this very unique school year. My name is Stacy Klein. I'm with Orange County Q. I'm the board secretary, and I'm a teacher in the San Antonio Unified School District. And I was so happy to be able to grab Kim's session to moderate. So anything you need, put it in the chat.
All right. And feel free to interrupt me because I just get going sometimes and it's hard to stop me. So welcome everybody. I put a link to the slides in the chat, and let me go ahead and share my screen. Make sure I do this right. All right. Can you see Bitmoji, Kim? Okay, cool. I have my dual screens here, and I don't see the chat at this point, just so you know, Stacy. So if things come up, just let me know. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with planning the perfect week. Welcome. Let's see. My name is Kim Voge, and this is my 27th year teaching. Oh, I erased the 2, and it should say 27. My 27th year in education. And I, this summer, was asked to basically start up a virtual school in our district for K-6. We had a 9 through 12 independent study program, and we wanted to expand so that we didn't lose kids to other opportunities if they just wanted to be virtual all year. So I've been working like day and night since that happened, and it's going well. We're getting rave reviews from people on, you know, everyone goes to Facebook and your local buzz communities, right? So it's been a real big learning curve, a learning experience. It's been quite amazing. And like, thank goodness I had the EduProtocols to make this kind of be able to pull this off. This is all the information to get a hold of me if you need me. I also teach a college course online with teachers in technology, and I am an OCQ board member. I'm the events co-chair or part of the events committee. I'm not exactly sure my official title. That sounds good though. And if you email me, I try to get back to you within 24 hours. I've been a little bit slower with that lately with the demands. I have 54 students in my class. But now I am just in charge of math. No, I'm just in charge of language arts and social studies. I have a co-teacher for math and science. So it kind of took some of that pressure off, and I have stopped having heart palpitations, which is a good thing. So I am not sure if you are familiar with EduProtocols, but this is a book that you can purchase, and there's a lot of the templates online already for free at eduprotocols.com. It's a book by Marlena Hebern and John Carippo, and I found it in, I think, 2018, right before I went to a Q event. John Carippo had Twittered about it and said, hey, before you come to Spring Q, have the book delivered to your hotel room and then bring it to the book signing. And I'm like, okay, take my money, another $25 book. Let's see what this one has, right? And it has been absolutely inspirational and transformative for me. EduProtocols are basically lesson frames that allow you to apply them to a variety of subject areas across all your content. I have used them personally 2nd grade through 12th grade, but I know that there's plenty of K1 options for them as well. They were written with UDL in mind, so you support your students with special needs, your GATE learners, and your English language learners, so you can take care of everybody. They're extremely versatile and fit in really well with the Madeline Hunter lesson design. If you ever went through a credential program that mentioned having the hook, the input, the practice, all that, and independent study or independent work, it absolutely falls in line with that. So that's just an overview of what an EduProtocol is. To kind of talk about our day and our hour and how I've structured this, I want to give you the big picture of how I put all of this together using the EduProtocols created by John and Marlena. And then I'm going to show you a couple versions of my weekly planner. One is from our distance learning before the summer, and one is just last week's lesson, so you can see the iteration and how it's worked out now with independent study. So knowing that I don't teach direct instruction online, some of my counterparts are having to basically Zoom all day with their students, and I don't do that. But I could show you how these work in there. And then I've got EduProtocol details for about 10 of the EduProtocols. I've put in samples from students, the masters you would need, and we can take it from there. So are we good so far, Stacy?
Kim, did you drop your the bit.ly to the slides in the chat already? Did I miss that?
I did. I'll drop it.
Good, I got it. I got it. I'll copy it again.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
All right, so the reason EduProtocols work so well is that you get constant formative assessment opportunities with your kids. I don't have to wait for a Scantron form, a Google form. I don't have to wait for anything because I can see what they're doing. Now, last year it was grading while walking around, John Crippo would call it, but now I'm having to kind of like I call it serpentining my grade book, or doing the serpentine model in my Google Classroom, where I'm going through and looking at the students' work in there. If you use Nearpod or Pear Deck, you can see student work a little bit more in real time. And I'm able to give my kids comments back and forth very easily. I use an app called Moat, which I think it's $20. It's the best $20 you will ever spend as far as distance learning goes. Skip the Starbucks for a couple days and buy yourself Moat. I can leave audio comments to my students. So I have found that my feedback is actually more in tune with what they need. It's super specific. They could hear my tone of voice. I started noticing I was putting smiley faces at the end of every sentence I was writing to kids, because I wanted it, like if you just read it, it may sound harsh, but if you knew the intention was all good and golden and true, like everything, it would be okay. There's no like sweet font versus sarcastic font, so I was using a lot of smiley faces. So my feedback is the key to making the EduProtocols work. You call them out on the little things as you go, and then they improve. And then the repetition is a key factor here. We're going to do the activity over and over again until we get really good at that skill, and then we can apply it in other areas. When I first started going full bore into the EduProtocols, I was a TOSA, a teacher on special assignment, and I had been doing a lot of work in my district with Universal Design for Learning. And I found that a lot of teachers don't know that term. Our special ed teachers do, but Universal Design for Learning is actually a function of general ed, and it's all over your frameworks if you're in California for sure. But we got our California state standards before we got the frameworks, and people never had time to go look in the frameworks. So what I've done is, this will open up larger on your screen. And I do have this in Word format. If you want to, you can always email me and I'll send it to you in Word format so you can customize it. But what I did is I took the three areas of UDL, the multiple means of representation, action, expression, and engagement. That's those three color codes in the middle of the page. And they match the color coding of UDL on the cast.org website. And I aligned in in my district how I can provide for the multiple means of representation for my students, how they might be able to show what they know through action and expression, and different ways I can engage learners, not just at the beginning of a lesson, but all the way through the lesson. And then around the outside edge, I put in my lesson building reminders. I think we as teachers have so many tools in our tool belt that we forget what we have in front of us, and we get into sometimes this boring routine of just lesson delivery rather than really making sure that I am getting the content to the kids in an understandable way. So my reminders include Bloom's taxonomy and Marzano. Across the bottom are just some of the directives in my district as far as the technology we have use for. We are an AVID district, so the Wicker skills, cooperative learning, some formative assessment opportunities. And then along the right-hand side is a reminder that I'm always servicing students that might be gifted and they might not even be identified, or they might be gifted in different ways than just the COGAT test for. My students with special needs, and then my English language learners. So my pie in the sky dream with creating this was like it would be on 11 by 17 paper, folded in a Clearview pouch, like in my lesson plan book. So I just had it as a resource or a reference tool. And then I started thinking, well, how do all these EduProtocols align to my standards? Because my position as TOSA was eliminated from the budget and I was returned to the classroom. Okay, that's all cool. I told my principal, I'm going to be teaching with these EduProtocols. She said, do what you want to do as long as you are teaching the standards. So I wanted to have a way to express to her that I, in fact, am teaching the standards. So these link right here to, this is California specific, but if you are a Common Core state, this should align for you because I use the anchors from Common Core. And if you are not a Common Core state, I'm really going to go out on a limb and say this probably with a few small adjustments will work for you, because this is the scope of learning that all of our students get across the United States, I think. So what I've done here is I took all of the K-12 anchors, so they're the same for everybody, and I aligned all of the EduProtocols to them, at least that are currently in the there's 2 EduProtocol books, so these are current for the books that we have out right now, and they are working on more books. So these are for the language arts standards. These also work for social studies and science as far as the literacy type standards, and so I think you could find a lot of use for them in there. And then the other document is math, and math, at least in California, the content is not aligned K-12 necessarily. There's some breaks in the domains of math. And so our key aligning feature, though, are the mathematical practices. And so I aligned the EduProtocols to the mathematical practices. And that seemed to be helpful since we incorporate probably 1 or 2 of those in each of our math lessons at all times. These also probably relate well to the science and engineering practices, is my guess. I know there's a diagram that shows science and engineering practices with the mathematical practices and the language arts practices, and all of them kind of build together. So, any questions so far, Stacy?
Everybody looks good. I keep reiterating things in the chat,
Okay.
but that's great. They're just saying that they love it.
Oh, good. Okay, awesome.
And it's amazing.
Okay, good. So while I was in the classroom getting going with this, I started thinking, like, I got a long-term plan, and I had been out of the classroom for 7.5, 8 years. So, and we had changed curriculums, and it was huge for me. So I went to like the 3 main writing domains that we have and reading domains, which were informative, narrative, and opinion or argument. And I kind of zeroed in on, or zoomed in on that spreadsheet of what went with what. So if I were reading an informative passage and we were going to write informative, then I would be using Sketch and Tell, Mini Report, and Cyber Sandwich. So this kind of helped me target which ones I could use on a routine basis, whether it was in science, social studies, or language arts, so that I kept building those skills for the kids, and they got really pliable with them, malleable, like we used them all over the place. The kids started asking for them. They're like, Mrs. Voge, we haven't done a cyber sandwich for a while. I'm like, okay. Like, they're asking for this. They're like, Mrs. Voge, we really don't like it when you're gone with a sub. And I'm like, I know, but sometimes I gotta be out. And they're like, well, could you leave us EduProtocols? I'm like, sure. Which ones would you like? They're like, could we do an Iron Chef and a cyber sandwich? And I'm like, okay. So now they're asking for them. So I just inserted my content, and my lessons went on without me. And it was the best day the sub ever had because the kids were already trained and knew what to do. I've never had kids ask to write before, and they started asking for the random emoji power paragraph. So when you get kids asking for these, like, you know something's going well.
Kim, that's my favorite story of yours, when the students are ordering your curriculum like they're on a menu or something.
Right. It was amazing. And I love the relationship I had with my students, especially last year, where they felt comfortable to ask me for that. That's that trust. And I mean, we had a great year. And then when we had to transition to distance learning, we were like pretty good. I'm like, hey, you guys, it's the same thing, but in our pajamas, you know? It did not start off easy for me last year. I broke my hand 2 days before school started. I was at a new school, new kids, nobody knew me, that kind of thing. And I started planning language arts with this series called Benchmark, which there's nothing wrong with the series. It works, it's great, but I just didn't have any training on it. And I planned for like 6 hours on a Sunday. And it was like not my best work. The next day I went in and I'm doing the lesson with the kids and everything. And it was like kind of a flop. And I'm like, dude, I've been doing this for 26 years. This should not be a flop. And I spent hours and I apologized to the kids. I said, you guys, I am so sorry. I just don't feel this was my best work. I'm going to go back and try again. And sweet little Chloe says, Mrs. Voge, it's okay. No one's ever worked that hard to make us not have a packet before. And I'm like, oh, okay. So all I want to do is like do better for these kids, right? Because this is what it's all about. So then I called John Carippo, the author of the book, in tears on a Sunday night, basically. Or no, by that point, then it was Monday. And he was in between flights on a layover in the airport. And he's coaching me through my tears about he's like, well, what are you trying to teach? I'm like, well, they have to read and they have to annotate and they have to summarize. He's like, oh, so they have to do a cyber sandwich. I'm like, oh. So once I started, that's where that spreadsheet came in really handy, because once I started realizing I got to go back to just the standard, quit looking at what the publisher thinks I should do and use the passages with the EduProtocols, life was good and we got into a routine. And so happened the Plan the Perfect Week. So this is now the general idea of Plan the Perfect Week. So what I've done is I took each content area and I kind of laid out a pattern. And it's not to say that this is the pattern I used every day. This is just ideas for you. And then I put the resources on the next slide for these if these don't sound familiar to you or you're never heard of these things before. But we got to the point where, especially in math, I felt like I was floundering. And so we were using a quizzes to introduce the topic where we were using then the EduProtocol called Fast and the Curious. So here's what we're going to be learning this week, guys. We're rounding with decimals. And I give them some decimal problems with rounding that they'd never seen before, give it to them cold, have them do it, and they fail miserably, but that's okay because I'm going to do my mini lessons throughout the week and we're going to get better over time. So they got to have like that growth mindset thing. They got to see that things are difficult, but I can learn new things and measure their growth over time. I also used math reps, which were created by Lisa Nowakowski and Jeremiah Roosh. And there's a whole website full of them ready to go for you. And I would incorporate some Khan Academy in there and stuff. And it just started making my math a little bit more rich. And those other ideas, the supporting resources are right here for you. And then same thing happened with language arts. I was getting into a routine. We got to do our vocabulary or our Greek and Latin at the beginning of the week. We start with the Fast and Curious. We go through. The kids recognize which words might be difficult, so then we frere those words, and then we continue on with our vocabulary. And it's that multiple hits of information. If you kind of think of like how you improve with batting practice, or how you improve with your workout, or how you improve with football, you do lots of little reps of small skills that you can then play the game. And the other important thing is that each of these things is not being graded as a grade in the grade book. Each of these is being provided as practice, and I give feedback. So I tell my kids, everything's 5 points. If you do it, you get 5 points. Then on Friday, I'm going to test you on it. That's what the grade is. So you got to practice, 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 and then you get the points. Like the football players are not getting graded on their practice. They're getting feedback. They're not being paid at their practice. They're getting paid in the game. So I try to use that analogy, especially with teaching also parents how things are structured in my classroom, that not every little thing is going to have a grade on it. I'm not going to go red ink every little thing. And then for our reading, we would have a reading passage for the week and maybe use some of the other EduProtocols called Bukakucha or the Frere model with fraring a character. They loved making memes about their book, especially if you have like 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. They really enjoy making memes, and you can see that they are starting to understand. They're starting to get that sense of humor and irony about things. And then we did some grammar always in there with 8 parts grammar, and we graduated to 8-part sentences. And all of these things I'm mentioning are different EduProtocols, and many of them are resourced and referenced right here as far as helpful slides for you to use those. During our first round of distance learning, we didn't do a lot of like essay writing, but what I did was try to prepare my students for an essay. So instead of teaching my kids right away, here's a 5-paragraph essay and here's how you do it, we did a series of mini reports. So we did, let's say we were getting ready, we did a national park project instead of a state report. So the kids did a mini report on the plant life, the animal life, and the geology or geography of their national park. Little mini reports, boom, 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 3 paragraphs. I'm like, oh, okay, you guys, we're gonna write an essay now. They're like, oh, they like melt in their chair, you know? And I'm like, wait a second, you have 3/5 of it done. They're like, what? I said, yeah, the essay is about your national park and the natural features. You have those 3 paragraphs. Now we just need to add an introduction and a conclusion. And we made that essay writing not hurt now. So those types of things that you put those small structures in there and you start using the EduProtocols in versatile ways. Same things with social studies, just kind of rack and stack the EduProtocols. As an elementary teacher, I didn't want to have to plan 4 subjects a week. So I would do like a 3-week unit of social studies and then a 3-week unit of science. And it took some of the pressure off from trying to fit in 4 subjects in a day. And I also would use the readings from these different areas or some of the writing opportunities to mesh in with my language arts. So if in language arts we were reading about informational writing, there's this whole corn unit that we do in 5th grade that was crazy. Like I learned more about corn than I ever needed to know. And then they wanted you to write an informational essay about corn. It's like, okay, we've done a lot with corn. So in science, we were learning about biomes. So instead of writing informational essay about corn, we switched it up to biomes. So then I was bringing in the science curriculum. So any questions on that, Stacy?
No, just a lot of good. One thing I wanted to mention is that Jamie said, oh my goodness, we use benchmark and I hate it. You're saving me. So
good.
I went through the whole benchmark thing and sure, there's a lot of cool stuff in it, but like, oh my goodness, it's just a hot mess. It's everything. It's
everything. So like, don't feel the pressure to do 16 mini lessons a week. Mm-hmm. Like it's always the short read the first day. So I'm going to do a cyber sandwich. Mm-hmm. It's the next day is another read. Maybe we'll Iron Chef it. The next day they do some research on their own. We're going to mini report and you get yourself into a routine and pattern. And yes, it will save your life. Okay. So now I have 2 iterations of the Plan the Perfect Week that I want to share with you. This first version, I call it version 1.0, was back in the before time, from March to June. So basically it was a way to organize a structure for my students because I met with them a half an hour a day just to kind of go over this. We were not doing any new learning. It was like basically review and building on skills. And so that's how I approached this. And I'm not going to talk to you about each thing, but since they were doing a lot of it asynchronously, I would have them maybe do a quizzes and they would record their score. I wasn't keeping grades at that time because we were not supposed to. Plus I would never grade them on their practice for that anyway. I grade them on the Friday for the assessment. So this just shows you a structure of kind of how I paced things out that might work for you. And this was a social studies week. Okay, so now this is literally my slide deck from last week. And now I am teaching 6th grade, so the content will be a little bit different. And this was our first week where I did like the weekly planner. We had a 3-day week and then a 4-day week. And then last week was our first 5-day week. And the first 2 weeks was a lot of training and a lot of people really scared, like, did I do the right thing by jumping into virtual learning for my student and all this stuff. So I took that day by day because I needed to see what my kids could do. And so last week was our first week. So I set them up for success with all their links that they need for the week on how to get into the different Zooms. So everything's in one place. Google Classroom, if you're using it, is not a true LMS. It is basically a way for me to throw things to kids and get them back. And it's not organized and it's not user-friendly as far as finding stuff. So I try to link everything in my weekly planner so they don't have to go find anything in Google Classroom other than this document. But I still grade and put everything in there. I just link it all here as like a master place to go find it. So I give them weekly tasks, like here's your task across the day. I have to log their PE minutes. So this is usually linked to a Google form where they go in and write to me what they did for 20 minutes. I remind them to check their email. They don't do that every day. The idea on this planner is wherever there's a blank spot is something for you to do. And so after you do that, go up to the fill bucket and fill it in with whatever color you want as a way to kind of keep track of your task list. So they have an online to-do list rather than keeping their agenda. This is basically their agenda. When you do something, go fill that in. Some of them are not doing that and then realize when I keep sending them multiple emails about their stuff, they're like, I didn't know I was supposed to. I'm like, well, it was on the planner. And, you know, so we talk about it and they're just learning. I keep reminding them, we're all just learning, guys. And now like in a month, I'm not going to be nice about it anymore. Cause it's like, dude, you got to get on top of this. But being independent study, they have 240 minutes of learning they are doing on their day, not necessarily with me. 40 minutes of their time is with me and 40 minutes with another teacher on the actual Zoom. They were starting to they were floundering. They don't have a bell schedule. So I made this as like their bell schedule, which may not apply to you if you're kind of teaching in the moment with your kids. And then here, oops, there we go. Here's what a week looked like. Here's what last week looked like. We did Fast and the Curious, which is an EduProtocol. They were really struggling with some sentence building. And so I kind of went away from the actual EduProtocol and we went into some in-depth of looking at the different parts of speech. They were doing a note-taking with the I Survived book series from Epic. I let them go pick a book and we were reading because we're getting ready to start a survival unit. And then you can see that on Fridays, some of their assignments aren't posted right away. They have to wait for those links. But everything else on this planner, when I click on it, will go right to the Google Classroom. So they're not getting like another master set or anything. It's taking them right into the Google Classroom. And so they don't have to fish around and find anything. And how I do that is in the classwork tab. When you assign something, and it'll give you 3 dots after you assign it. And you copy this link right here and you paste that link on your weekly planner. That's how it gets to my kids and gets them to the right place so that they were not having 16 tabs open on their computer. The first week I was like putting the activity and the video and maybe like a support PDF all in one assignment. But when they opened all 3 of those things, then they had 3 tabs open. And so instead of having to open a lot of tabs, I've now been putting their activities all stacked in like one slide deck so that it's like they go through, it becomes almost like their own little book that they're going through. And we talk about how that setup works. And then social studies, I'm in the wrong, sorry, I was in my actual, there we go, back into the right place. For my social studies, it kind of started turning into a Hyperdoc almost. So I don't know if you know the Hyperdoc, but the Hyperdoc is like the ultimate EduProtocol. And I noticed that over the course of the week, my kids were basically completing a Hyperdoc. So on Monday we engaged, on Tuesday we explored, Wednesday we explained, Thursday we applied, Friday we connected. And I'm like, oh, this is like a nice orderly way for me to put kind of a Hyperdoc together for them, but they don't have to keep going back and scrolling through one long thing. They're gonna go hit just the item they need for that day. And it seemed to work out pretty well. last week. At first, they were overwhelmed by the weekly planner until I sat there and like explained it to them and said, you know, instead of each day there being something new for you to go find, you're going to come back to the same place. And for the ones that felt overwhelmed, then they kind of got on board and they were okay. I send this out on Sundays to the parents as well. And I send a little tutorial video. I make like a 2-minute overview of the week. And I send that to the kids and the parents so that everyone knows what's going on. And they all feel like they've got kind of like a little starting chance of it. Kids don't like to read what's on the screen. We don't like to read what's on the screen. We like to listen to it real quickly, but we don't really like to read. And so what I'm finding is the kids are missing a lot of things when they don't read all the directions, of course, which is the same problem we had in the classroom. Now it's just magnified a bit that we're in distance learning. I think we're getting into some routines, and I'm really thinking that by like another week of this, we're going to be really smooth sailing. So any questions, Stacy?
Nope. Everybody's like really excited, and you have like 25 people in here. Good job.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. So if you're wondering, like, how do I get started with EduProtocols, and I haven't done with my class, you can insert these at any time of the year. This 4-day schedule right here was built with the first 4 days of school in mind. Certainly there's way more here to do than 4 days. The authors and I built this. You can access it on the EduProtocol website. This link will take you right there. And you end up making your own copy of this document. And as soon as you click on the picture, it takes you right in here to the actual document. And it looks like you have to click one more time to get in there. And what we've done here is we have set up a variety of EduProtocols with 3 or 4 introductory lessons. The thing about an EduProtocol is that you want to always start with something that's low cognitive load. We're not going to go do an Iron Chef with the Revolutionary War the first time out. We're going to do an Iron Chef with something silly and fun because I'm going to teach them the routine. All of these are set up with pretty much, I think you could use these with any grade level. 2nd grade and up for sure. You'd have to further modify for K2. But we had, I gave this to my whole school district actually bought the EduProtocol book for every teacher, which was like, I've been talking about it for 2-3 years. It's like, yes, finally. And so I had so many people contacting me because they were doing this in high school and middle school and elementary and having a great time with it, just getting rolling with these. And so this would be great ways to get them started in your class, and they're fun and non-threatening, and we're just teaching them the routine. And we're going to do that a couple times, and then we can launch it. So like the first couple weeks, I did some of these bukakuchas in here, which was all about watch this video and tell about the character. Watch this video and tell about the setting. Watch this video and tell about the conflict. Well, then this week, I'm using that with the story that we have in our textbook, and we are kind of breaking that down now and applying it to the reading passage in there, which is a narrative passage about survival and some kids who get trapped in a ravine. So it's all tying in. It's like I couldn't have made it tie in better, and it just, this natural flow starts to happen that's super, super exciting. Let me get back in here. So the other thing that's in here for you is basically, this clipboard page. These are hyperlinked to the different activities in here so that you can see real student samples and have a rundown on how they work. So are there any requests of any of these that, and it might be new for you, either a request or I'm really pondering, but you can throw that in the chat and Stacy can let me know like what looks popular.
Yeah, the Fast and Curious is being asked for, and then Jamie, we are recording this and it'll be put up either on the OCQ website or the QLA. We'll tell you at the end. Everybody likes Fast and Curious and Iron Chef. Awesome.
Okay, cool.
And they
All
love
right.
how you have tabitis.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, on my screen.
We all do. And
My boys yell at me.
I started using Wakelet so I could cure some of my tabitis.
Yeah. Well, and you can't even see the other screen has equally as many tabs open. So it's just like my brain. Okay, so we're going to talk Fast and the Curious. So Fast and the Curious is a great way to open up a lesson with vocabulary, your math facts. Like if people have done the Mad Minute for years and like children are scarred because of their Mad Minute experience, right? We had the multiplication house growing up in 3rd grade. My teacher, actually one of my students that I have right now and who's in 6th grade had my 3rd grade teacher for her teacher. Okay. Like I'm 48. Like, let's do some math here. Anyway, it was crazy to me. But I'm like, did you have a multiplication house? She's like, uh-huh. I'm like, oh my God, we're in 2020 and we still have the multiplication house. So anyway, instead of traumatizing our kids with these Mad Minutes and stuff, let's build fluency in a fun way. So with the Mad Minute, or with the Fast and the Curious, your schedule looks the same Monday through Thursday. You're going to give the students a quiz. You're going to do a mini lesson, and you're going to give them a quiz again. So for example, the first week of school, I gave the kids a quiz about me. I talked about myself using the Quiz application, which is free. And then I gave them a quiz again. And so the first time they took the test, they maybe got 50%. The second time they took the test as a class, they got 70%. Then the next day we came in, I gave them that quiz about me again, and they got about 70. I talked about myself a little bit again, and now we're up to 90. And once they hit 90, I don't keep going. It's like, we're done. We got it at 90%. Now, it's really fun to do that about yourself the first week, but then what do we do week 2? We did our vocabulary words. I did that for the first week in social studies. We were learning about the different types of maps. So I found a quizzes already made on the different types of maps and what you learn from a map, like legend, key, all that stuff. So rather than state my objectives at the beginning of the lesson for the kids, I let the Fast and the Curious do it for me. I can follow up if the kids are struggling with certain concepts using the Frere model or a thin slide. A thin slide is simply a Google slide where kids put on one word, maybe a definition, and one picture. They're super quick, and they maybe do it for the thing that's causing them the most struggle. There's something called Learning 360, which was really great to do in my classroom where the kids were up around the room with their whiteboards. But if they have a little whiteboard at home, they could certainly draw or write on there. If you're using, you could use a Padlet almost for a Learning 360, or if you have Nearpod, there's the Collaborate board. So there's a variety of ways to now still see what everyone's thinking. There's a variety of resources for using the different online tools for different quizzes. I prefer Quiz that I have hardly had to make any. I think last year maybe I made 10. I went this year looking for my story for my language arts book. They're already made. I'm like, yeah. So they're already made for my Greek and Latin roots. They're already made for my basic math facts. If I want to go over multiplication, it's already all done. There's other ones called Quizlet, Gimkit, Socrative, and Kahoot. And any of these, you can click on them and they are hyperlinked. The icon is hyperlinked to that website for you. So questions about Fast and Curious. Anything in there, Stacy?
Nope. And everybody's been asking about, they like the Tab Cloud add-on in Chrome in one tab, but they just dug your presentation. And they are asking about where the recording will be, and it'll be on Orange County Q's YouTube channel. I'll put Kim's recording up right after she's done.
Okay, cool. And then you asked for Iron Chef. So let me get Iron Chef. Okay, so Iron Chef is basically a jigsaw. So I'm going to take a reading passage. We have our social studies book, at least for our elementary, I call it the Cliff's Notes of Social Studies. It was very scant amount of information. So usually there were 4 topics in there. Let's say it is, I don't know, the events leading to the Revolutionary War. And we've got Boston Massacre, Lexington and Concord, the Tea Party, and pick one other. So I have my kids in groups of 4, and they each read one section of that, and they create a slide, and I'm going to show you some examples in a moment. And then I have the secret ingredient, because that's a big part of Iron Chef, where the secret ingredient you have to do something with. And the key here is these are quick, short reads, and then the kids present the information. And each group is doing the same thing, so they're going to hear that same information over and over again. And it helps me offset my lecture, because as the kids are talking about these items, I can fill in the missing facts. Rather than me just sitting there and telling them everything, I've now involved them. So the best way I can show this is through some samples. So this is a sample. This is pre-COVID. This was face-to-face learning. And what I did is, this is from our social studies book. I basically created one slide with the directions. Read your page in Unit 2, Lesson 2. Use the information you learned from Google Earth as well. In 20 words or less, write a summary on what you read or learned for this topic. And this person's topic was the heading in the book. I copy and paste that slide, and I change the topic for the next student. So my work is really one slide. I'm not finding links for the kids. I'm giving them the input. Maybe I'm going to give them 3 links. I could link stuff on here, but I'm not finding it for that specific topic. I'm going to find the Explorer's webpage that I want them to read, and they go find their topic. And then they have a secret ingredient. In this one, it was delete this text and use one of the bold vocabulary words in a sentence to show contextual meaning. We'd been working on that as a vocabulary skill. I wanted them to use the tier 3 words in the writing in the social studies book. And so they picked the word in their paragraph, and they wrote that paragraph, or wrote that sentence right there. So that was the secret ingredient this time. So that looks really good for face-to-face learning, when I can kind of control where kids are going. But what about distance learning? So what I did for distance learning, oh, wait, this might not be a distance learning. Hold on. Oh, this is the corn. This is an example from our language arts book. So in this one, they had to read the section. They erased the directions. Here we go. In this one, I told them what page to go read, and I gave them a specific thing to write to. And then our secret ingredient this time was, how do you best like to eat corn? Just super fun, silly, but it was just a fun way to relate to the topic. What I have been doing in distance learning, let me find I have a whole EduProtocols master document here. In distance learning, I have been putting everybody in one slide deck, and as they come to the slide deck, they enter the slide deck, they enter their name on a slide, and it tells them, it gives them like a key of where they're going. So let me show you what that looks like. I think this one is the distance learning one. So this is another social studies example, but because we were doing some asynchronous learning, I couldn't keep track of who was coming into the slide deck and when they would do their part. So I gave the instructions up here on the first slide. This is explaining to them what they're going to do, and then these were their resources. So everyone was using the same input, and they got to their group. So this was like the pink group. And so whoever this person was, Jasmine got here first, and I just erased their names. So she put her name, and then Hudson, and then Danica, and then Kaya. And so as they arrived, they put their name on that slide, and then they would go, or on that section. Then Jasmine knew that she was colonies decide to meet together, and so they went to this one, colonies decide to meet together, and did this. Now, if they weren't the first 4 people that got to the document, they would go down to the next, and the next 4 filled their names in, and their slides were here. Then the next 4. etc. So you can kind of see how I set that up for all my class in one slide deck. And as they came in, they got a slide. So there's a variety of ways to make it work. That way just happened to work for us. So that's Iron Chef in a nutshell. So anything else in there, Stacy? Any other requests?
Yeah, we have 5 minutes left, but there was Cyber Sandwich, Iron Chef, Mini Report, Freyer model.
Okay, so like everything. Okay.
Yeah, but you got 5 minutes left, so whatever you would like to cover.
I'm going to do, I have to share in good conscience the random emoji power paragraph because this is the one the kids request. So for this one, you as the teacher open up Socrative. It's free. You open up the short answer question for your kids. And they go there. You go to this bird seed. This is by Ian Bird, who's a big gate guru. And he has taken all the emojis that are alcohol, tobacco, and firearms and removed them. And so the kids are over in Socrative. This is on your screen. And what I tell my kids to do is, with the random emojis, you have to write a sentence for this one. I don't even know what that is. Is that like an old telephone booth? I don't know. Let me start over. Okay, good. There's the artist paint palette. So the kids write a sentence that includes an artist paint palette. Maybe some of them are going to write about Bob Ross. Maybe some of them are going to write about they are a painter. They can write about whatever they want. They write that first sentence. Then I click and then. Now I have to somehow incorporate someone getting their hair cut with that first sentence. Okay? Maybe I got paint in my hair and it was enamel paint and I couldn't get it out, so I had to go get a haircut. And then I have to incorporate music. Maybe while I was at the hair cutting salon, I was listening to rock music. And then, how am I going to incorporate a bunny rabbit? I don't know. So, pardon me, the kids find creative ways to include this. And after they get the 5 emojis, they press submit. I pull them open. The great thing about Socrative is I can pull it open on my screen and I read them and I turn them out to the kids to vote. And we talk about different grammar things like who used a conjunction, who has their quotation marks correctly, and we incorporate the mini lessons of grammar I need to. And then the part 2 of this can be the nacho paragraph, where you take a student's paragraph that's not theirs as its nacho paragraph. And I put a student paragraph here and they truly learn how to revise now because they're going to use someone else's work. So they realize they're not just writing for the teacher, they're writing for an audience, and they go in and fix this up. So they truly learn how to revise. This is why they love the emoji power paragraph. And I can provide you other examples. Just to finish out, because I know we're basically done, I just want to show you that on this last screen are a lot of links to things I've made and resources people ask me about. I have a whole Facebook group where I throw out all the stuff that I do. So I encourage you, if you want to continue the conversation, join up there. I mentioned earlier that Hyperdocs are the ultimate EduProtocol. My Hyperdoc builder is here. So I've tried to support you with like everything I know and do with the EduProtocols. So a couple minutes for questions or where to find whatever you need. And I'll stop screen sharing. And so, oh no, stop screen sharing. Publish share. No, I want to stop it. I'm not seeing how to get rid of it. Okay. All right. Well, it's not letting me stop screen share.
Is there a little red button at the top or?
No, it's so bizarre. It's not. Oh, well.
Let me try to share and then maybe that'll kick you off.
Yeah. Oh, wait, there we go. Never mind. I see it.
Oh, good.
It wasn't where I normally look for it when I'm with my kids. So great. Am I back on screen now?
Yep, you're perfect.
Okay, cool. So any questions or anything you guys have?
This was amazing, Kim. They're just flattery.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
The name of the Facebook group is Empowered Adventure. And during the summer, a bunch of us did like every day in July, we did a session. And so I have a bunch of recorded sessions too, so those are up there too. Okay, great. Awesome. Yay. Okay. I'm just happy to help you guys and make this journey like a little painless each day. So let me know how I can help you. The name, yeah, I can put it in the chat.
And I put a link to your EduProtocols Smart Start page as well.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, high school people are loving this. So they didn't take me seriously a couple years ago because I'm an elementary teacher and apparently I scream elementary teacher, which is fine. But now they're like, oh my gosh, I did this, this, and this. So it's awesome. Yay. Oh, good.
The whack-a-mole, I get it.
Yeah.
Good job.
All right. Well, thank you guys. I hope you have wonderful sessions with everything else. I'm happy to hang and chat. You could even like unmute and chat, or I know you might need to get to your next place. So yes, I'd love to see you on Twitter.
Yay. Good job. I'm going to stop the recording. Awesome.
Okay, great.